Good evening, Kishore. I'm happy to have you in this interaction today of Manufacturing Business Forum, and where we will be discussing on the post-pandemic picture for the manufacturing industry for India as well as for the world. So, thanks for coming. Thanks for your time. And then I will start with the first question. So, after experiencing a huge crisis time in the year 2020, going forward, 2021 looks like the year of transition. So the next normal is going to be different. There will be sweeping change in the industry dynamics, the business operations, strategies, and most importantly, the technology adoption approach in the coming years. So how do you look at the big picture in this post-pandemic industrial scenario?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me here, Shekhar. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure.
And, I think this, like everybody has said this, and I've said this many times before, this is a very unprecedented situation that we're all facing. But the good thing about it is the vaccine is out. So I think the confidence in people to sort of trust in the scientific community and trust in the governments around the world has increased multiple fold. And so life is coming to a normalcy, like you rightly said, a new normalcy. And I think in this new normalcy, one of the first things I believe companies will have to do is reflect and think about what was their core values that they built their companies on in the first place. And I think if the core values, they cannot change. This is a situation that happened, but I think what the situation has brought to all of us is to understand who we are. And once we know who we are and why we set out being in the businesses we are in, I think it gives a new, sort of a North Star for us to follow. And that is going to be essential. In my view, companies have to reflect, companies have to understand their core competencies and their core values, and then build on the same. Number two is that I think financially, companies need to be more focused on cash. It was obvious that the banks were reticent to lend because they didn't know what the outcomes are going to be. And at the same time, cash was needed to sustain the business operations, even though it was on a mothballed basis for most companies for a long periods of time. Having said this, the good thing out here is that human nature is never going to change. I think all of us have gotten into the mode where we are consumers and we are true consumers, and we are very happy to consume, and we have seen the joys that consumption brings, which means that more and more manufacturing, more and more products and services, more and more innovations, and the world changes, right? But the underlying human need and greed never changes. So I think that will definitely bring us back to the new normal, whatever the new normal is, very quickly. And, it is also very important that at the end of the day, trust is built. And trust is built when, as we come out of this whole thing, everybody understands that all of us went through the same pains. And that, every country or every city or every individual, I think we've all been through a lot of pain over the last year. And I think there should be reflections and learnings out of this pain as individuals. And I think that will help us all build ourselves into a better world tomorrow. Now, when we come into manufacturing, needless to say, I think we will have to look at productivity. We'll have to look at efficiencies, but most importantly, we'll have to look at it and say that, what did we do good before? What did we not do good before? How do we optimize? How do we legitimize? There are many, many things that are going to come about as we go through 2021. So I believe it's going to be a very exciting 3 quarters ahead of us. And I think it's going to make the difference between the doers and the thinkers. And I'm looking forward to it.
Good. So this COVID-19 crisis has created an imperative for companies to reconfigure their operations and an opportunity also to transform them. So the near-term challenge then is to move from reacting to the crisis to building and institutionalizing what has been done well so far to come through stronger with a more balanced outlook for the future. That's what you mean. So would you like to give short examples from your organization, and can you highlight the big ideas defining the year ahead, which will help manufacturing businesses to catch up with the growth momentum?
Well, look, at the end of the day, when it comes to services and serving our customers, I think it has been our priority, and we will make sure that we service every customer any part of the world, any time of the year. And so that part of it, there are no compromises. When it comes to technology, I think we have adapted ourselves. We've been able to look at digital technologies. We've been able to look at more and more digital mechanisms coming into play. And as we build on this, we also looked at digital as the future. And if digital is going to be the future, what does it mean? So we kind of instituted artificial intelligence ethics, kind of a framework, which will enable people who are building AI for the future to look and say that, is it going to be good for all stakeholders at all times into the future? So thinking about these things also, but when you move this into the manufacturing area, we have to look at the supply chains, and we have to say that, can we do this in a better fashion with the same supplier, different supplier? Do we have alternatives? And then we have to look at it and say that, look, in the future, when we are building more, how do we build the future supply chains? How do we build our future factories? How does IoT play into this? So all these have been ongoing conversations for us. And also the world is evolving for us in terms of electric, and Rolls-Royce is moving into a net zero economy is where we'd like to result in eventually. So we're looking into electric, hybrid propulsions. So all these new innovations, new technologies that are coming about, the way we think about them using digital, the way we think about them using IoT, all this is just evolving for us as I speak to you today.
Okay. But do you think people are like talking about this? We have actually getting into the growth momentum, and a lot of industries have already showed the positive signs of getting into the track which was there before the pandemic. So do you think this situation is really? I mean, there is really a growth momentum happening, and how sustainable that is?
In some ways, I do see the growth momentum, and I can only relate this to what I see around me. And whenever somebody talks about a bubble that's happening in something, you look around you and the people you interact with, and you genuinely feel the buzz amongst your peers, your colleagues, your friends, your social setting. And so when I look around me, and you can do this as well, Shekhar, when you look around, you will see how people are moving about as though nothing ever happened. The confidence is back in people because they all know that they can wear masks, they can do social distancing, and soon enough the vaccines are coming. So there's a little bit of a, sort of an energy that has come back into the system. And I think that energy is driving the consumption patterns, which is driving some of the revival of the economy. But having said that, this is going to sustain for about another couple of quarters until the end of the year. But then the rest of the things will start coming into play, right? More and more of tourism, more and more of education, more and more of healthcare. So there's going to be all these needs that are going to get fulfilled over the next 6 months or 8 months. But beyond that, the world will come to a plane where, again, we have to think about it. What's the next GDP spur that is going to come about? And when that happens, and we are focused on manufacturing, and we have put in the right efforts to do the right manufacturing, and I think then we will start moving ourselves into a little different plane in India. And I think the world itself will move itself into a different plane of how things get done and how trade gets done between countries. That's going to impact on what happens locally on a global scale.
Correct. So what would be the factors one should look at while managing and sustaining the growth in the coming years?
Well, number one is I think customers are going to be very different, right? Customers are going to be looking at it, and I already see a lot of my friends are, in a work-life balance. It used to be, we all used to say, let's work a lot more because we need to keep growing, ambitious. And a lot of people are saying that we need to provide enough time for life as well. So I think people are going to be having a more balanced work-life situation as we go forward. And it is seen by the work from home concept that's kind of building out around the world, which means that the offices are going to be just places people come in for three days, maybe 4 days a week, but definitely not a full week. And factories are looking at how do we, if people are going to be working from home, digital technologies, technology like what we're doing right now, talking to each other or video conferencing, is all going to just scale up. And I think this means 5G is going to continue to grow. We're going to see, all these things evolve into a different world, which means manufacturing, as is required for this new world, is going to continuously keep changing. Raw materials requirements are going to keep changing, and people's skills are going to keep changing. So I think from 2022 onwards, we're going to see another sort of a plane at which the growth is going to take place. But all this, the fundamentals never change. I think for companies, cash is king. So I think when companies have cash, then they're able to do a lot of things. And countries, when they have cash, can do a lot of things. But along with cash also comes the innovativeness in companies. And I think we are all going to be looking at incremental innovation or incremental changes that bring about innovative ideas that brings the new consumer to your doorstep. And understanding consumer patterns, understanding consumers, customers is going to become the key as we move forward. Those patterns are changing.
Well said. Very valid observations. Can you throw light on the changing role of the manufacturing business leadership, right from how it has evolved before crisis times, during the crisis times, and post-crisis period?
I think in general, whether it be manufacturing or any sector, the first thing you will notice is that, leaders definitely have to have a lot more empathy than ever before. Because the leaders themselves are subject to it. And I think more than the physical pain that a lot of people would suffer as a result of the pandemic, there's been a lot of mental health issues that have started to creep and has crept in. And so, managing people is going to have a little bit more effect from a more empathetic front than from just directly focused on outcomes desired for the businesses. So there's going to be a little bit of the emotional quotient that's going to start playing a lot more into the workplace environment. And number two is, I think with technology changing and improving, I think leaders have to be constantly at the front and looking around the corners to see what is the next big thing that's going to come around that's going to disrupt. And with such disruptions, what is it going to mean for their businesses? And in manufacturing, how is IoT going to play itself out? In a country like India, you need to provide a lot of jobs, but it's completely opposite of what automation does. Because in automation, there'll be a reduction of jobs, but it'll be reskilling and repositioning of jobs in a very different way. So training of employees very frequently, making sure they are always ahead of the technologies that's evolving is going to be the key. And that training is going to provide the motivation, and that motivation is going to provide the mental health for the employees, which in turn is going to translate into a more productive workforce and a more productive manufacturing environment.
Right. So moving on to the last question, how can the industry and the government play a better role in accelerating the growth of the technology-driven Atmanirbhar Bharat?
So at the end of the day, when we look at Atmanirbhar Bharat, it's about self-reliance. And I think COVID has been really bringing it to the forefront about how much countries have to think about, how to survive by themselves to a limited degree, if not to a large degree. And a country like India, which is really up there in terms of the contribution to the globe and the number of people that are dependent on the government initiatives and the government insights that are going to drive the future of the country. So I think it's going to be very important that the government, is well tuned into not only the needs of the local people, but to the needs of the global community. And I think industry plays a very big role because industry has to work very closely with the government. And while the government has tried to figure out what's the thing that we need for our people, and the industry has to step up and deliver on those. And then academia, let's not forget academia, because without the proper education, proper skilling, so industry, academia, and the government have to hold hands and take the nation forward. And I think there's a great opportunity for us all to do that.
Okay. And just connecting with that question, what kind of localization plans your organization has going forward?
So look, I'll have to look at the past to see what the future presents itself to us. I mean, when I look at the past, we have two joint ventures now. We had the first joint venture with HAL in Bangalore for civil aerospace components. And we have built our second joint venture with Force Motors in Pune. And it is for the S1600 products with our RollsRoyce Power Systems business. And it is located in Pune. It manufactures this engine in India for the globe. And so it is a new joint venture, and we'll get into production very soon. And we will be serving the globe from Pune. And so for us, these two have been great achievements in the way we have looked at how to grow more and make in India more. And as I look at the future, it's going to have a blend of make in India, but it's also going to have a create in India concept. And I think more and more Atmanirbhar means we want to make in India more, but I think it also means we want to create more in India. And so the create in India concept will go further for us as we move forward. And we are looking forward to it. We're looking for the collaboration between Britain and India, between collaboration between Rolls-Royce and Indian companies. And we are looking forward to building that bridge even stronger.
Great, that's the good news.
Yes.
So thanks, Kishore. It was always pleasure interacting with you. And the best point which I like during our conversation always is your optimism. That makes everyone happy.
Well, glad to contribute. Glad to contribute. Thank you.
Yes, it's a pleasure is ours.
Yeah.
So look forward to talking to you again,
Same.
and wish you all the best and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Shekhar. All the best to you too.
Thanks a lot.